All right. Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast. For some reason, the connection between my mic and the computer is still broken for the second week in a row, but we trudge on nonetheless. But we don't have the normal music, and it's kind of ticking me off. But regardless, Charlie Burris, that is Zach Reagan. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you listen throughout the world. We thank you so very much for joining us here on the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast. We talk everything Vols every week here on the pod. And if you want to listen to that on the reg, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is not one right now. I was playing in a golf tournament yesterday and could not make it back in time to do the show. But nonetheless, we actually got huge news that dropped today. So the timing's actually better. So we're going to do it on a Tuesday. But if you subscribe to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed, you won't miss our shows when we drop them there, regardless of the day that we post them on. And otherwise, go over to the YouTube page, A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube. And there may be some developments there coming up soon. Can't announce anything there yet. But with YouTube, things may be shifting around. We'll see what happens. But as of now, A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. Go over there, hit that subscribe button. Join us when we go live. Specifically, hit that notification bell because then you'll be notified when we go live and you can join in. Like all the folks that are already commenting. Thanks so much to everybody who's already tuning in. Couldn't do the show without you. And at Charlie Scribbers, at Zach TT, A to Z Sports, A to Z Sports.com. You're here. You know where to find us. What's up, Zach?
Yeah, I'm just shocked at the news that it's Tuesday, not Monday. I was operated all day thinking it was Monday. It's that time of year, I guess, when football camp gets going, they practice weird days, media's, sessions, weird days. It's all out of whack until football season gets here, which it's pretty much here at this point.
Everything just runs together at a certain point. And I mean, we aren't even to the crazy part of the season yet, where it really becomes hectic. Where, of course, I have the Game Day Show with Jonathan Crompton that we do. Zach, you're writing stuff around the clock for Tennessee as you do. And I mean, we already got plenty to talk about now. It's just going to get even, it's going to grow even more from here. So we'll see what happens. And of course, we're going to talk about everything that's happened, specifically scrimmage that happened this past week and the fall camp practices that have been going on since that scrimmage, before that scrimmage. Going to talk about all the updates there, any, injury, how players are looking. We'll cover it all. But today, as I said, it was kind of nice timing that we ended up having to do the show on a Tuesday this week, because this morning it was announced that Neyland Stadium will now be Pilot Stadium. No, I'm just kidding. Thank God it won't be Pilot Stadium, but they are going to be partnering with Pilot around Neyland Stadium. Pilot is going to be one of the beneficiaries of the $300 some odd million renovation that's going to happen for Neyland. And we'll discuss the significance of that too, because it's a pretty big deal. And I mean, I can just give you my biggest take already. I'm so glad that they didn't change the name. Thank you. The Food City Thompson Bowling Arena is enough.
It'd have been hard to make fun of Kroger Field up there at Kentucky if they would have Food City Field at Neyland or something.
Yeah, would that not have been the saddest turn of events there? Boy. So I guess maybe shout out to Pilot in that way. They didn't change the stadium name. We'll discuss that more in detail, and a little recruiting update too. All of that on tonight's show, right after I tell you about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some have stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Go get yourself a health plan. Huge shout out to them. All right, let's get straight down to it. We already got a bunch of comments. Kenny says, let's go, baby. Let's go. Adam says, Best podcast for the Vols. Thank you, Adam. We truly appreciate that. Nugs says, hey, fellas, go Vols. Go Vols, Nugs. Thanks for hanging out. As always, Lewis is in the comments. For some reason, the Vandy fan that watches our show, we appreciate that. Richie James, we see you. Appreciate it. Now, fall camp has been ongoing, and we are officially in the season of, has our offense gotten a lot better? Does our defense suck? Has our defense gotten better? Is the offense not as good as we thought it was going to be? A lot of that speculation obviously going on. First scrimmage happened over the weekend, and the news out of scrimmage was, I guess, first off, kind of the defense effectively, quote unquote, won the scrimmage. I mean, take that and as whatever you would like to. But I think there are points to be made about the defense. There's certainly points to be made about the offense and some guys that flashed there. We can start at a high level. Zach, what did you hear about the scrimmage and how everybody looked?
Yeah, I think, well, the first thing I think that struck me from that scrimmage was Josh Heupel talking to reporters right after. I mean, he sounded optimistic, upbeat. You can tell he really likes this team. I mean, there's always work to do. That's true of any program, no matter how good you are. But I mean, I don't know. He just seemed so optimistic about this group. I thought it was very encouraging that the first player he mentioned when he was asked about the scrimmage was running back Deshaun Bishop, just off the top. Wasn't asked specifically about any player. The fact that he stood out is huge because of that running back position. We've talked a lot this offseason about the lack of depth there, or not really the lack of depth, the lack of proven depth, because you've just got guys that don't have a lot of SEC carries behind Dylan Sampson. And I think the staff is showing that they understand just how important Sampson is to this team, because they're being very cautious with him this fall. Doesn't sound like he's going to scrimmage at all. Not doing a ton during practice. I mean, that's a guy that's ready to go. He's been working hard, all offseason. Pretty much as soon as that Iowa game was over after the Citrus Bowl, he was back at it. You don't really have to worry about him being ready. He's one of the key team leaders. But they obviously think he's pretty important because they don't want to take any chances with him. So the fact that Bishop stepped up is huge. Peyton Lewis sounds like he's coming around, true freshman running back. And then, you get Cam Seldon back. Maybe they're a lot better at that position than we thought that they were going to be. You just got to go out there and prove it at this point. As far as the defense being better than the offense, I mean, one, that's expected early in the scrimmage. And two, I mean, Tennessee had so many players out. You mentioned Sampson already. Several offensive linemen, several wide receivers still down, not participating. So that was, what do you expect there? This defense, the defensive line especially, I mean, you can't hide the excitement that people feel over this defensive line. You've heard it from Tim Banks in the spring. You've heard it from the national media even. That's kind of like the one area where they kind of like they'll concede, yeah, the Vols got some dudes there. The players on Tennessee's team, I mean, that media session from Joshua Josephs, I think it was last week, was probably the most electric media session of the fall. I mean, he went through pretty much every player on the defensive line talking about how good they were, and he was incredibly excited about the group that Tennessee has. So that, that kind of those kind of vibes, I guess you'd say, is definitely good to see. So you would expect that group to kind of have their way with an offensive line that doesn't have several key starters out there, and an offense that's still finding their way. Lots of talent still finding their way. But even though the defense won, there's still lots of good stuff from the offense. I mean, Ethan Davis, tight end, came out of that scrimmage with a lot more hype, and he was already a pretty hyped player. He made some big plays. So I think there's plenty to be excited about. And Chris Brazzell, who's been making plays all fall, I think the hype for him is only getting stronger as we get closer to the season. So it's not one of those things where you're questioning if the offense is going to be good. You should be excited about the defense and encouraged by what we have seen from the offense so far, because it doesn't sound like there's any major concerns with the offense.
It was encouraging to hear, especially that Deshaun Bishop piece, because we have been looking around and kind of saying, who is going to be that guy behind Sampson? It's a little bit of a scary proposition, just because that's a position that can get beat up very easily. And so also historically in Heupel's offense, it's been at least a 2-man attack. At times it's been a 3-man attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so who's that other guy going to be? Maybe it's Bishop. Maybe it's Cam Seldon when he comes back. We don't know. But that's nice to hear that somebody's stepping up. That would be huge. And it would just be cool. First of all, he's a local guy, which is really, really cool. Actually, went to the high school that I went to, at least for a time. Went to Carnes for half, Hardin Valley for half, for those in the know, for the Knoxville crowd.
And Bishop, is he a walk-on? I don't know if there's clarification on that or not. I can't remember. He wasn't there. Yeah, I know when he signed, there wasn't like an announcement from UT, which they usually only do with the scholarship players, or maybe when they've actually signed the scholarship. I can't remember if he's on scholarship or if he's a walk-on. If he's a walk-on, it'd be pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like either way, like you said, the fact that he's from Knoxville, but it'd be a unique story if he's a walk-on and ends up playing a huge role for this Tennessee team.
Carnes High School shout out. I don't see one way or another. It just says explosive playmaking running back.
Yeah, he was a lower rated, like
careers in Tennessee history.
He was a lower rated 3-star when he signed with Tennessee. So it would line up if he is. But either way, it's him stepping up is huge and a very cool story too.
For sure. So that was nice to hear. Yeah, Brazel looks like a dude. I really hope that comes through. I saw the clip that was getting passed around the most of him was pretty clear offensive pass interference. I actually retweeted it on my Twitter. Pretty clear offensive pass interference, but I like that. Maybe he's got a little bit of that dog in him. He's going to go up there and going to go up there, get the football, find where it's at, get after it. And I love that. And, you just keep hearing more and more hype about Nico. I think it's real. I think it's going to come to fruition, but I'm still cautiously optimistic. Got to see it in an SEC football game. Obviously saw it against Iowa, and we're seeing it in fall camp, I think. But, that's always exciting. For the defense, I would expect linebackers to be pretty decent, defensive line to kind of be the star there. The secondary, hearing some interesting reports out of the secondary, because obviously we speculated after Jordan Thomas went down that it's Boot Carter time, hopefully. And then now, did I see on VolQuest, was it today, that Will Brooks might be a guy that they're looking at there? I mean, would that not be the ultimate, we're playing the older guy because we refuse to play the younger guy? I mean, that would feed into that narrative so hard. But and maybe Brooks is stepping up. I don't know. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, I think Brooks is going to play at safety a decent amount. I think he's a really, really smart kid. He's another one of those guys that just really understands exactly what Tim Bates and Willie Martinez want in the secondary. He's probably a future coach if that's what he wants to do. I mean, that's kind of the way I see his path going. I don't think he's an NFL player. No offense to Will Brooks, but it seems like I think he said this week he's been repping more at safety, not as much at star like he did last year. And that star position is probably going to be more Christian Harrison and Boot Carter, is the way it sounds. So I think maybe Brooks is going to be rotating in at safety, perhaps with Harrison and Carter playing at that star position.
But even
they like him. I think they just like the fact that he knows what to do. You can stick somebody out there that's got pure athleticism, like Arian Carter last year, and he made some plays because of his pure athleticism. But he didn't always know where he needed to be, and that was to be expected with Carter. He had been a running back for most of his high school career. It was a very new position to him. And I'm not saying that's what you do with Boot Carter, because he came from a high school defense that was fairly similar to what Tim Bates runs as far as some of the concepts, so it's not completely foreign to him. He should be a little more ready, a lot more ready, I think, than Arian Carter was as a true freshman. But he's still a true freshman. Mistakes are going to happen. He's never played against this level of talent before that he's going to see. And just the fact that he's in the mix and is either going to split time with Harrison or see some significant time tells you how talented he is, because this staff is really not liked going to true freshmen in the secondary if they can help it. And it sounds like Carter is going to leave them no choice. And who knows, once he gets on the field, it might be, okay, we can't take this guy off the field.
I hope so. It would be amazing, obviously, to have a guy at that skill level. But I just fear that they might truly, play into that narrative too much and have a lot of people talking just like is the best guy out there without Boo playing. And and if Boo doesn't play, we're not going to know if he's truly the best guy. We're only going to know what we can see on the field, of course. But we'll see how that shakes out with Harrison.
They're
Uh,
probably just trying not to crown that guy just
right.
yet, because he's never played a game. You can't. There's only so much hype you can get as a true freshman before you've even played a game, no matter how much potential you have. We got to see it, and I'm pretty confident we're going to see it from Boo Carter. I think everybody is confident in that. His teammates rave about who he is as a player, the way he competes, and his talent. He's not a can't miss guy. There's no such thing, but he's pretty close to it.
Well, and maybe as far as that whole Will Brooks situation goes, maybe he's got a little bit, that John Fulkerson, that Kirby Cannell, maybe he's a
Colton Jumper,
Colton
yeah.
Jumper of sorts. Maybe he's
Legend.
that guy. Hey, and I would love it. Colton Jumper played hard as hell all the time, and I I don't care. Whoever can go out there and make the play, that's the bottom line. If it's Boo Carter, if it's Christian Harrison, if it's a walk on, I do not care. Whoever can go out there and finally make that play that we haven't seen. But I of course, at the end of last season, I was of the opinion of ditch Willie Martinez. So he's on thin ice with me. As much as I love Heupel and this staff in a general sense, I personally, you could have fired that guy, and I would have been like, okay, we're good. That's fine. We could find another one. And no offense to Willie Martinez, but that's just the results you've gotten on the football field from that position. And so I'm on pins and needles to see exactly how that shakes out. Thankfully, you got kind of a snoozer game to start out, and hopefully they can find their footing there.
You got to point out Jermod McCoy from that group, transfer from Oregon
Yeah.
State. A lot of good things said about that guy. Consummate teammate. I love the quote from Willie Martinez. I think it was yesterday, Monday. He said, this guy is who he said he was. And that's all you want to hear when a guy gets on campus. You get the guy that you thought you were getting. And it sounds like they did with Jermod McCoy. That was a huge get. Super underrated get of the offseason. He was going back to Texas or Texas A&M, wherever, he's from Texas. He was going to a school there, and Tennessee somehow, I don't know, they got him to reconsider and come to Knoxville instead. That was a massive get for them that kind of flew under the radar nationally, I'd say.
Man, it would be so nice to have on defense kind of what you found in Hendon Hooker on the offensive side of the ball. Just a total surprise. So much better than you thought he was going to be. Steps up and fills the spot where you truly needed that help. That would be so nice. Maybe he can be that guy. We will see. But outside of the secondary, I'm liking what we're hearing about the linebackers. Obviously, the defensive line. I don't want to get too hyped on the defensive line. Things that you're hearing about that is that it's legit going to be a borderline elite group, and that's exciting. But I don't.
It's so deep too, and
yeah,
and that it helps you in so many ways because look, this offense. There's going to be times it sputters. There's going to be some 3 and outs. You go into Athens and you get a few false starts and you got to punt a couple times. Suddenly your defense is on the field for most of the first quarter. That's when you get in trouble because they're not fresh. With this defensive line, you can rotate guys in and out almost as much as you want. It seems like Rodney Gardner's got that deep of a group. That's huge. That's the way Georgia can weather the storm at times when they play in some of these games when it gets to halftime and it's like, Georgia's only up, 14-3 or 13-3 or something, and then second half you see it's a blowout. Just they're so deep, and they can get by without their guys getting gassed in the first half, and they're still fresh in the second half when the other team is completely gassed. I don't know if Tennessee's to that level quite yet, but they're pretty close at this point. Josh Heupel likes the depth.
Man, we will have to see. Again, we are deep in the. Is the offense is going to be as good as we think? Is the defense better? Does the defense still stink? Is the offense just really good? We don't know the answers to all of those questions. It's all kind of speculation at this point. We can just see what we see. And And here we are. I am hoping that the secondary can find something. Maybe it's Boot Carter. Maybe it's Jermon McCoy. Find that dog that they so sorely need. And not just a dog who plays hard, but a guy who's also extremely skilled. That would be
Yeah.
more than anything. I think you can find a guy with a lot of heart, but you got to also find a guy that can make all those plays and not.
Yeah, you got to have some speed if you're a DB. No matter how much heart you have, it's tough to get by without speed.
Exactly.
Especially at corner.
Heart is not going to let you just cover anybody in the SEC, unfortunately. But we'll just have to find out. Anything else with the scrimmage before we talk briefly about a little recruiting tidbit here, or with we've had a couple of practices since then. Now that we've seen notes on that.
Yeah, I think the tight end position is pretty solid. I think you're probably even better off than you were last season. I mentioned Ethan Davis already had a really nice scrimmage, made some big plays, and Holden Stays and Miles Kitselman. Both of those guys coming in, landing them from the portal. Really, two more underrated additions. I know Holden Stays had a little bit of hype coming from Notre Dame. When you had Kitselman, it was almost like, oh, okay, that's some depth, some added depth, and coming from Alabama. And it sounds like he's been a dude in camp, so that's helpful. Even more, you can rotate in and out there. We know how important that position is in this offense when it comes to blocking. Be interesting to see if you see more receptions from that group. Collectively, I think over the first 3 years, I was adding it up earlier, the tight ends at Tennessee have averaged 39 catches a year, and that's usually split among three guys. It's been Jacob Warren, Princeton Fan, McAllen Castle's in there, and you've had some other guys rotating in and out too. We catch a few passes. Do you get more out of that group? Are you targeting that group more? Is the offense a little bit different with Nico in there and some of these different talents that they have? Ethan Davis is going to be he's going to be a mismatch. He's a big dude, but he's fast. He can play like a receiver. It'll be interesting to see how they use these guys and if that's a position that all of a sudden maybe you see somebody catching 30, 40 passes that out of that group, and maybe they're catching 60 passes this season, and that would be a different wrinkle from this offense from what we've seen the first couple of years.
Yeah, I would welcome it for sure, and seeing Kitselman's name brought up is really interesting. As you said, he was sort of brought in not to be mean about it, but a little bit of an afterthought of sorts. Just a depth piece probably was the initial thought there. So that's interesting. I hope whoever it is, that's such a key piece in how Heupel runs this offense. Just any of those guys, you need them to be solid and smart in particular. So hopefully whoever it is can handle the job. So sure they'll get that figured out. But that is, as far as fall camp goes, we can only dig so deep in terms of what we've seen and what we can go off of. So everybody, as far as we're concerned, this team looks 15-0, national championship. That's what I've seen personally.
Stay healthy, and I don't know, you'll have a chance to do some special things, I think, if they stay healthy, and especially Nico. Though Gaston Moore, I think, is going to be a more capable backup quarterback than I think we thought at any point. I know, I thought they should have looked for a backup quarterback in the portal if they could have found someone that makes sense. I know that's really tough in today's climate when Nico is going to be the starter and maybe you can go somewhere else and play or get some sort of NIL deal. Looks like Gaston Moore has played really well. He understands this offense. Obviously, he's been in it since he was at UCF under Heupel in 2020. He gets it. He can make some throws. He has an arm. We saw it, a year before last, 2023 at the spring game when we went. Gaston Moore looked like the best quarterback on the field at times. And some of the highlights Tennessee's put out, he can sling it. He's got some sidearm throws, some different arm slots. I think he's a more talented player than we realize. He's not going to lead Tennessee to a championship if Nico gets hurt, but I think he's a capable backup that can come in and play some important snaps and get the job done in a pinch.
I hope so, and I'm glad that despite the fact you didn't pick anybody up, you look like you have somebody competent. Lord willing, you don't have to use anybody like that, and Nico is that dude and wins a Heisman Trophy and wins you a national championship and whatever. But just nervous. I want to know. We're so close. Let's just get to this football season. Billy Bob says, I hope we utilize all the talent on the hill and spread it out, keep the opponents off balance. Candace says that Tim Banks coaches the safeties. So if Brooks starts, it's his call, not Martinez. I mean, put the blame wherever you want to.
Yeah, I think that's collectively Banks and Martinez's. I mean, they work so hand in hand with the safeties and the corners. They're both out there together, and I think they're kind of making those decisions together. But of course, Banks being the defensive coordinator, it all is going to have to go through him because he has to answer for it ultimately.
Yeah, the buck does stop. The buck stops with Josh Heupel ultimately. But yeah, Tim Banks, he is the dude on that defense, and I've given him plenty of criticism during his time at Tennessee. Also given him a lot of credit because I think he's had moments where his unit has played above its head. So we shall see.
That's why they beat Texas A&M last year.
Exactly. Who saw that coming? I remember how shocked Heupel was shocked that they won that game. If you saw
one of the all-time best reactions to winning a football game.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was as surprised as anybody. But just a quick note before we talk about this whole pilot deal. You had a little bit of recruiting news here. It's nothing completely set in stone, but a pretty exciting development nonetheless. David Sanders, who is a bona fide across-the-board 5-star offensive tackle in the 2025 class, a guy that Tennessee wants so badly, was predicted by essentially the entire crew at On3. I looked at it. This was on August 9th. Chad Simmons, Pete Nakos, and Steve Wiltfong all predicted for David Sanders to choose Tennessee. That's big, and I always say it on here. When those guys make those predictions, they don't intend to look stupid. And so a lot of times, and I'm not saying that this has happened, it's pure speculation as far as this goes, but a lot of times something has happened there where maybe the player's having a video made and those guys know about it, or he's told them and said, hey, keep it secret, this is coming. Something like that. Sometimes that turn has already been made. Don't know if that's happened here because I think Sanders has played it extremely close to the vest here. And I like the way that Sanders just kind of handled his recruitment. It's sort of been, you can tell in the way that a lot of the recruiting guys talk about it, they don't really know what's going on. It's been sort of all over the place for him. And I love to see a recruit do that, sort of take the reins of their recruitment and not just work everything through the media there. But how are you feeling about Sanders' recruitment right now, Zach?
Well, I mean, I've watched a lot of disappointment as a Tennessee fan. So there's always a little bit of you that's just like skeptical, I guess. And I wouldn't say I'm skeptical at all on this one. It definitely everything's pointing towards Tennessee. Logically, it makes sense if you track the visits, if you track the way this thing is played out. It almost feels like, and this is total speculation here, maybe we'll look back after next weekend and see if this proved to be true, depending on what Sanders says in some of his interviews. But he took those final 2 visits at the end of July to Nebraska and Tennessee. And what you see a lot of times with recruits, and this is what happened with Faison Brandon, or part of it at least, is, after he announced his commitment, he revealed that he had been committed for, about a week since that last visit to Tennessee. He committed to the staff then privately. And then, the commitment comes out. He had a ceremony a week later. It almost feels like that had to be what happened with Sanders. And it feels like, he told Georgia maybe they were out in person. I don't know. Maybe he told Ohio State. I don't know. Nebraska, he didn't have this as deep of a relationship with this whole time. And it felt like maybe he went back out there to just kind of give them closure. Like, hey, thank you for recruiting me. Just not going to work out, whatever the case may be. And then he took that final visit to Tennessee. That's the last place we know that he went to, reportedly. That could have been when he's told the staff in person, because I think he's the type that would want to do it that way. And maybe I'm wrong. We'll see here, hopefully in a week or so, but that playing out that way would make a lot of sense. And, it would be shocking, I think, to see him go to Ohio State after not visiting there. We're pretty confident Georgia's out. Nebraska would be such a weird for a player of his caliber, it seems like he really wants to go to a place where he thinks he can win, where he thinks he can get to the NFL. Georgia and Ohio State certainly qualify. That's why, beating them out would be so huge in this battle. But Nebraska at this point just does it. I mean, Matt Rule hasn't really proved a lot out there. He had a good year or two at Baylor in a tough situation. It was pre-COVID, pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal. We have no idea if he knows how to navigate this new landscape of college football. He's got some recruits, but it could be, the Butch Jones thing going on there where he's making some promises and landing these guys. We heard things about his, time with the Panthers that weren't, not that he's a bad person, but just that he just wasn't a good CEO there. So all that just kind of makes you think, why would Sanders pick Nebraska? And he's definitely not the type to make this all about NIL. So Tennessee makes sense. It's hard to see another program swooping in there.
It really does. Not to be too down on that situation, if you lost out to Nebraska here, that would be pretty devastating. That would be a significant loss. Ohio State's one thing. Georgia is one thing for sure. I mean, recruiting powerhouses right now. But Nebraska, with a guy who's done next to nothing so far there, you can't lose that way.
But you got to think, if you did lose to Nebraska, so did Ohio State, so did Clemson, so did Georgia,
True.
So did South Carolina, whoever else was in this battle. It would be a bad look for all of them.
That is a very fair point. But I'm extremely hopeful that they get Sanders. It would borderline lock you in. It would, I would say, definitely lock you into a top 10 class for 2025, borderline top 5. If you can finish out the way you really want to, including Sanders. It's exciting times. And if anybody gives George McIntyre his 5 stars back for whatever reason, that whole deal happened, you'd have 2 5 stars in this class, a whole load of 4 stars. And I think they're really putting something special together here if you can lock in Sanders. And I'm very excited. We'll find out soon enough.
Saturday.
Yeah, okay.
At like 12:30 Eastern, I think.
Ooh, we'll be
if you get Sanders, there's a 5-star tight end, the top 10 player in the 2026 class that just transferred to the same school Sanders is at in Charlotte, Providence Day. And then all of a sudden, maybe you've got an in with that guy, Kendra Harrison, because that's somebody that Tennessee's recruiting as well. His will be a little bit trickier because he wants to play college basketball as well. So you might need Rick Barnes' help on that one.
And that never really works out.
No, it doesn't. We hear that all the time, and it just rarely see anybody playing multiple sports at any point anymore. You hear about Julius Peppers and stuff. That was 25 years ago, almost at this point, that he played both at UNC, and it's just not something that really happens anymore. These guys want them in these football coaches want these guys in spring practice badly.
I mean,
not willing to give that up.
Jameis Winston, he played baseball.
Yeah.
Here's a deep cut. Jeff Smarja.
Yeah.
At Notre Dame.
He ended up playing pro baseball.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, there are a few here. Kyler Murray, obviously, a dual sport. I mean, there it does happen. Baseball's I think maybe a little easier to make it happen. Perhaps it's just not as physical of a game, though. Baseball players, suffer nagging injuries too, and it does take you out of spring practice. But it's a lot to try to do both.
Well, you're a little time crunch, Zach. So let's talk briefly about this whole pilot thing before we bounce up out of here. But first, we got to pay these bills. Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee that's bringing sports betting to a whole new level. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to a $100 no danger first wager. If your bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for that amount up to $100. And there is even more good news. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. And if you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it. There's even sportsbook bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only, so check it out at zensports.com/VIP if you think you qualify. What are you waiting for? Zen Sports offers true odds on all parlays, so get going. Download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger. First wager limited to plus 500 odds. To qualify, boosted odds or driver equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Shout out to Zen Sports. Blue Man is going crazy in the comments. I don't know what he's talking about. Probably something about how Tennessee is going to stink this year. Thanks, Blue Man. I'll take. Even Vandy fans are welcome to this show. I did see Billy Jones says, "Go Big Orange, football in Tennessee should be exciting this year." I absolutely agree. And on that note, something exciting that is happening is that Tennessee just got a huge influx of cash from a company formerly owned by the Haslams, who have their name slapped on nearly every building on Tennessee's campus. Very famous alumni, son who is an alumni of Tennessee, was the governor of the state of Tennessee, yada, yada. We all kind of know. Technically, they're not, I believe they completely sold their stake in Pilot at this point. But Tennessee has signed a 20-year deal with Pilot Corporation that at a minimum is going to have a lot of their signage on the stadium, up on the press box, down on the field. Some people are speculating on uniforms. We'll see. But this is a big, big deal. If for nothing else other than it's $22 million a year or something like that, that is now going to be plowed into Tennessee football and the athletic department in general. And of course, in the age of NIL, hey, give us all of that cash. Your first thoughts on this Pilot deal, Zach?
Yeah, well, I thought maybe my initial reaction when I first saw the release this morning, it was we knew something like this was going to happen. It had been talked about earlier this spring. I thought it was brilliant by Danny White. I thought the way he played this was absolutely perfect because you don't have anything happening to the name at Neyland Stadium, the iconic name that, I think 100% of Vols fans would have been upset if something happened with that name and it was changed or whatever the case might have been. But you need that money, right? I mean, you've got to find a way to generate revenue, especially right now in college sports, because you need the money with NIL, with infrastructure, everything. You need as much cash coming in as you can get. I mean, it's just the Cincinnati Bengals did the same thing before last year. They had not sold the naming rights to their stadium and had refused to, and they finally did because it was like, oh, we got to pay Joe Burrow, we got to pay Jamar Chase, we got to try to pay T. Higgins and all these guys. We don't have the money to do it. So it's just one of those necessary evils in sports. It's just where it's at. But to do it, one with a company you're familiar with, that everybody in Knoxville is familiar with, and then to kind of keep it off of the stadium name or away from the stadium name, so that's intact. It couldn't have worked out any better. The other angle of this is that I thought was funny is the release kind of phrased it in a way as if they had no choice, and Pilot was saving Neyland Stadium from being renamed something else. And I think the term was preserve the historic name at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, who was coming for Neyland's name?
Yeah, nobody was forcing you to do any of this. Like, you didn't have to. I know, yeah, obviously $22 million a year, it might feel like you have to, but the choice was there to just leave it alone too. It was just kind of humorous the way that they framed it, I thought.
Yeah, Weigels really wanted it, and Weigels was going to change the name to Weigels Stadium.
Yeah, they're commandeer the stadium and put their logo up there and just force it up there. I don't.
Yeah. Who else? Butch's Beans. Maybe it was Butch's Beans. They were coming hard to make it Butch's Beans Stadium. I don't know. But Pilot saved the day. and they, what was the tagline? Preserved by Pilot, I think.
Yeah, it's it's brilliant in a way, but come on, Danny, we're not idiots. we understand that you're just trying to shine it up a little.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, I think this is great actually for Tennessee. Anything that brings that kind of an inflow of cash is huge in the NIL era. I kind of wondered when it might happen that one mega corporation can come in and basically be like payroll for your team, more or less. There's no indication that that's what's happening here necessarily. But if you basically came in and signed an entire football team up for an IL, an entire basketball team, and suddenly, okay, their names on on the basketball court, and every single player is now an NIL sponsor for them. Like something like that. I wonder when that day might come, and maybe the deal is with Pilot. Maybe now every player is sponsored by Pilot. I have no idea. But it's huge for Tennessee just to have this kind of backing. I guess Warren Buffett's a fan now of Tennessee. I believe he's the guy that bought Pilot, or his company did, Berkshire Hathaway.
And isn't he a Nebraska? He's a Nebraska guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's from Omaha, famously, and like lives in like a 2,000 square foot house and like drives a 20-year-old car or something.
You too could be a billionaire if you just save some money here and there and don't eat out. Do that.
Yeah,
you'll be rich.
Order water when you go out to eat, and you'll be a billionaire.
Make coffee at home.
Yep, that's the key. Now we'll see exactly what happens here. I think some folks are fearful that it is gonna suddenly be sort of the Pilot Corporation Tennessee football team. We'll see exactly the extent that it goes to, but as of now, I think it's a good thing, and it truly is the epitome of what we're seeing in this NIL era, and it's the direction that it's all going. And hey, Tennessee's on the cutting edge. They have been the entire time with NIL since all of that got instituted, and it just continues Tennessee down that road. So I'm all for it. I think it's good, and ultimately, think whatever you want about the Haslams. I think there are some people that wish the Haslams were maybe involved here. There's some people that are probably happy they aren't involved. A lot of split opinions there on them.
I think a lot of that goes back to some of these coaching searches and all these rumors that you've heard that aren't really verifiable, and so that not sure all of it's fair.
And Jimmy doesn't exactly have a gleaming reputation as the owner of the Browns.
Yeah, well.
There's that.
That's
too.
true. That's been a train wreck too.
Yeah.
But I think on the Tennessee side of it, though, I mentioned Danny White earlier. The guy, not only for doing it this way, but just who he is, right? Like he's not a Tennessee guy. I mean, he is now. I mean, I think he's fully assimilated himself at this point. But previous athletic directors outside of Philip Fulmer, John Curry, specifically Dave Hart, I think they would have just taken the highest bidder and done whatever and been like, you know what, I'm bringing money in. This isn't my school, this isn't where I went to school. This isn't my program necessarily. I'm okay with it. Like it's going to be Pilot Stadium or whatever, the name would have been. I think you had a real chance of that happening if this was a different athletic director. And I think the great thing about John Curry is that he's trying to move the program forward, obviously is, with the renovations at Neyland, the renovations at Lindsey Nelson, everything that he's doing around the arena or that he's trying to help get done, the great vibes he's brought. I mean, all that stuff is because he's so invested in this program and he respects the history and the tradition of Tennessee, and he wants to preserve that, to use the word they use today, while also moving forward into the 2020s and 2030s here coming up. I mean, I think he's doing it the right way.
Truly, it seems like he is very much in touch with the fan base, which is huge and something that you genuinely did not see out of any of, Curry thought he was real clever doing whatever he wanted. Dave Hart, I mean, good Lord. I don't know if he ever talked to a regular Tennessee fan in his time in Tennessee. And it's just incredibly encouraging that it seems like he's so in tune. White is so in tune with where Tennessee fans are at. And as you said, I think they played this perfectly. People were scared that they would sell out those naming rights. Not only did they not do that, but they kind of played the marketing into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just great. More evidence that Danny White is absolutely killing it as the AD of the school right now. And hopefully more national championships are coming down the pike. We shall see. Can end on this. I think this is a sign to end the show. Jeff says, are Charlie Burris and Wes Rucker twins? That's my cue to end the show, I think. Do me and Wes look alike? I don't know.
The beard and the glasses, maybe, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe,
I've never had that
yeah.
thought, but
we have been seen in the same place at times. If you paid attention to Tennessee basketball games in the past and football games too. All right, Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thank you so much for watching, listening. For everybody tuning in, Billy Jeff, Lou Man, Billy Bob, Candace, who all is up here, Billy Nugs, Richie, we love it. We thank you so much. Couldn't do it without you. Stay tuned. Maybe some exciting new developments coming for the channel too, and A to Z Sports in general. I'll leave it at that without everything being completely set in stone at the moment. But thank you for tuning in. That is it. We will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.